In the air crash, my fiancé watched my sister crash in order to save me, tortured me for 6 years after marriage, and forced me to die. After rebirth, I let him taste the pain of losing his loved ones. As the plane was going down, we discovered one of the parachutes was defective in that life or death moment. Eugene Shaw handed me the last working parachute. I made it to the ground, but my illegitimate sister Sharon Cook was lost in the crash. Her remains never recovered after our rescue. Eugene kept his word and married me, fulfilling our engagement. The wedding was extravagant, but our marriage was a complete disaster. For 6 years, he lived with his searing hatred, convinced I was responsible for Sharon's death. To him, I was a villain, and my life became a living hell. When we finally reached the end of our toxic marriage, Eugene dragged me back to the site of the crash, choosing to end both our lives in a twisted act of vengeance. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on that fateful day just before the crash. This time, I decided to give the chance of survival to the person he loved most. When I realized I had been reborn, the plane already began to jolt violently. Nearby, the crew was distributing parachutes. When they reached me and Sharon Cook, they discovered one of the parachutes was defective. After a moment of hesitation, Eugene Shaw handed me the last working parachute. "Opal, this parachute is for you." Eugene's face was filled with torment as he held out the parachute to me, but instead of taking it, I stepped back and refused firmly. "No need, Eugene. Save Sharon first. This time I wasn't going to carry the weight of someone else. Life, I was going to live for myself." Eugene exhaled deeply at my words, relief washing over his face. He looked at me for a moment, his furrowed brow finally smoothing out, and even a hint of joy slipped into his voice. Without hesitation, he pulled Sharon to his side and secured the parachute on her back. "Opal, you are my fiancé reefer yet, so I should have saved you first, but since you've asked me to save Sharon, I won't let you down." With that, he grabbed Sharon and leapt from the plane without even sparing me a final glance, as if afraid I might change my mind. Did he think everyone was as selfish as he was in the previous life? He made the same choice to give me the last parachute and stay by my side, leaving Sharon alone on the plane, even though we landed safely and immediately called for rescue teams. It didn't matter from such a high altitude. With the plane crashing, Sharon's body was never found. At first, when Eugene heard about Sharon's death, he didn't react at all. Even when he spoke to me, his tone was cold. She was just someone insignificant. Even when I was grieving, Eugene managed all of Sharon's funeral arrangements by himself. The only request he made was to ensure she wasn't buried in some random cemetery. He mentioned that the Cook family estate had a private burial plot with an open space and suggested she could be laid to rest there. Of course, I readily agreed and even considerately asked if he wanted to postpone our wedding. And what did he say to that? He held my hand, gazing at me with a look of deep affection, and said, "Opal, marrying you is my greatest dream. You wouldn't let someone insignificant stand in the way of that, would you?" But later I discovered the truth. It was because of that montude insignificant person that he rushed to marry me, just to torment me, to make me spend the rest of my life atoning for Sharon's death. But back then, was it me who forced him to make that choice? Did I insist he choose me number? How was her death my fault? This time I decided to give the chance of survival to the person he loved most.